Hi guys, I'm going to work today, but I just thought that, why not just make a vlog of me going to work and talking about things. So right now I'm actually getting ready, and also I just bought a new gimbal because a lot of my previous footages were very shaky, so I wanted to sort of have something to help stabilize the footage. Yeah, so I'm going to try it out today and let's see how it goes. A couple of interesting things happened these past couple of days. So yesterday I went to one of my clients' locations, and because we've been working on a prototype for him for a couple of years, but we haven't completed that prototype because of a lot of the development. There's a lot that goes into the development side of things, so it is taking us some time to sort of get to a point where it's demonstratable. But for the time being, he actually bought a new system that he was wanting the product that he wanted the prototype to be, but that new system still lacks some of the features that he was wanting in his prototype that he was trying to get us to develop. So yeah, we were just discussing about things, and we're talking about how to, instead of just focusing on the bells and whistles of the product, then we have to focus on the major selling points. Because the thing is, a lot of the times, if you put a lot of bells and whistles in your products, your customers might not even know what it's all about, or they might not even care about that new feature that you try to implement into your system, because for them it's just basically going over their head. Like, they have no concept whatsoever, because they might be in an age demographic that is not used to working with technology, so they wouldn't even be able to use it in the first place. So essentially, it's sort of like we have to focus on the main selling points and what will get them to sort of consider the product instead of buying another product over ours, because it offers, say, more features that they can actually use instead of bells and whistles that they won't use. So sometimes, as entrepreneurs and innovators, we get into the situation where we're thinking of new ideas. We're thinking, oh, we should make this, we should make that, we have a wish list of what we want to develop, right? But we don't actually sit down and think that, oh, is someone actually going to buy this, or is there a demand for this product or this service, right? So, and that's when you have to do market research and figure out, is there an actual need for this particular feature in this product or this particular product. So yeah, there's a bunch of things that we still have to go through, and yeah. Hi guys, so I'll be driving into work, and I'll probably talk about some things while we're on the way. So let's go. This is probably not safe. The video is going to be really, really shaky. So I quickly went to the shops because the camera holder I had before was very unstable. So yeah, when I was recording before, it was really, really, really shaky. It's good enough for, say, for GPS, but for recording things, it probably isn't good enough. So a little bit of a detour. But I was thinking I might as well record stuff right now, because to make the best of the time. So what's interesting is, so a lot has happened these past few days, essentially because I want to steer the business that I'm creating into an IoT development business. The problem with developing an IoT business, since it's based on hardware, there's a lot of overhead in terms of costs, right? So you can't just start off, making a hardware-based business unless you have a lot of capital and you get a lot of investments. But during times like these, I think it's a pretty bad time pretty bad time in terms of capital investment, because a lot of investors are actually pulling back in terms of the investments because of how the economy is going. So they're becoming more conservative, and also banks are not just going to, like, especially if you're a new business, banks are not just going to loan you money. So because your business doesn't have a good, or maybe I shouldn't say good, but it doesn't have a track record because it's just new. So they can't really trust you in terms of business loans. You can borrow from, friends and family and all that kind of stuff, but I think the most effective way to prove that your business is actually viable is that if you can bootstrap your business and earn money from, different sources to fund your business. So maybe, like, you might be aiming to make a product, but in the meantime, you sort of do services for customers so that it might be cash in the short term, but that's going to allow your business to survive, right? Also, there's a concept called customer financing, right? So if you want a way to sort of have a minimum viable product and a way to test your product initially and also get funding for it, you can use customer financing. And usually you're going to have to find customers that are willing to help you develop the product, but are also those early adopter customers, right? So when you find those customers, they might pay you to say, to use your product that's in beta or in alpha or something like that. And they pay you to test it on their systems or their premise, and they pay you for the development, but at the same time they give you the facilities to test your prototype, right? So that's one way you can do it. But the thing with prototypes is you don't know exactly how long it's going to take you. Like, you can make estimates, but like in programming, it's like usually when people make estimates, they tell you, oh, you have to multiply that by 3 or a bit more, because you get into roadblocks, and they end up extending the time that it takes to develop that product. But if you've already developed a product and you've done the same process over and over again, then you can basically systematize that process and account for how long exactly it's going to take you to undertake that project. And that's when you can accurately say, oh, it's going to cost us this much, right? But the thing is, whenever you're creating software, usually when you're developing software, it's from scratch, or not from scratch, but you're developing something new, because if the piece of software has been developed already, then you would just use the off-the-shelf software. You wouldn't be rewriting, or you wouldn't be recreating or making something new if it didn't already exist. And if it didn't already exist, then parts of that project might even take longer to make, right? That's why, for example, when, say, carpenters, they can pretty much predict how long it's going to take them to make a house, because if they have a blueprint and it's fairly similar to all the houses that they've made previously, they can have accurate estimates that, according to this blueprint and according to like the resources and the labor that we need, then it's going to take us this long. But developers, software developers, it's much more different than that. Like, they don't have a specific blueprint, and that's why they have this thing called DevOps, and that's why they have iterative development and iterative design, and this management style called Scrum or Agile, because requirements change and you have to adapt the product every time the requirements change. So that all comes down to the complexity of software development and all that. But yeah, so going back to the client yesterday, we met up, and essentially, because it took us a while to develop the prototype, and it's sort of in a state where it's almost done, but there's still a lot more to do, because I think the last time we left off developing that product, we were trying to develop the user interface, and we're using a platform that wasn't the optimal tool for the job. Sometimes you choose a tool that, so for example, sometimes you choose a tool like a hammer, right? Because you're used to using a hammer and you're proficient at using a hammer, and then you haven't used, say, a nail gun previously, right? And then the thing is, for yourself, you might be really efficient with using a hammer to hammer in nails, but a person that knows how to use a nail gun will be far more faster than a person that knows how to just use a hammer. So it's not so much of like being good at the tools that you use, but also knowing the right tools to use for the job. And the thing is, we were sort of using tools for the job that made it a lot slower. The tools that we're using had its purpose. So for low-level development, C++, it's good for using, but for higher-level user interface design and for cloud-based systems, it's fairly ineffective use of development time, because you'll have to write up the fundamental code that a lot of web frameworks have already solved for you, right? Or a lot of people have already solved those issues on using modern web stacks, right? So we're considering to redevelop the user interface using a different platform, and so it's going to take some time to develop, but hopefully it goes well. Number one thing I've learned so far that you have to be effective in if you're wanting to be an entrepreneur is you have to be really good at negotiating. Because think of yourself as a middleman, right? You're the middleman between your employees and your clients. So you have to be a motivation to your employees and get them to do the work, and you have to negotiate with them what they would want to do and what they would want to work on as a part of your company. And on the flip side of things, you have to negotiate what your clients are willing to spend. So you have to negotiate with your employees what they're willing to earn, and you have to negotiate with your clients what they're willing to spend. And anything in excess in between is basically your profits. So essentially, you're going to have to have really good negotiating skills to deal with both sides. And I'm sort of not a good salesperson, but I think you can sort of learn to become a good salesperson if you had enough practice and if you had enough exposure. Some people are naturally good at sales because they have the natural charisma and they have that natural confidence. So it naturally builds the trust between the clients and themselves. As long as, I think, if you keep working hard at one skill, you can get better at it, even if it's not your natural trait. So that's one skill that as an entrepreneur you have to be good at, is negotiating. And also, when you negotiate, always try to find a win-win situation. Like don't try to find situations where we're gonna beat this guy, or don't always go for the competitiveness in terms of how do we compete with this person, or how do we compete with that person, because you don't know, or how do you compete with this business, because you don't know, that business or a person might be helpful to you in the future, right? And it might lead to more opportunities in business. So it's actually better to, if you can't say, if you're offering the same services as them, or if they're offering services that you don't offer, then maybe direct some clients to them, right? And then your clients will grow trust to your friend or your colleague that you referred the client to, and you'll build more trust between both parties, right? Because instead of you saying, I can do the job, and then you do the job poorly, you actually refer them to a person who can actually do the job, and then later on in the future they might go back to you for other things because they said, you referred us to a person who's relatively skilled in this area, and he provided. Because you can't do everything, so it's good to have a network of different people with different skills, and you can just say, sorry, we don't offer these services, but we can refer you to someone that that does offer these services. Also, another thing is, so because a lot of people are losing their jobs, I think there shouldn't be the time where people, like, yes, there's a time to feel down and, you know, upset that, you know, what is happening to the economy and all that. But, you know, don't let it turn you into a victim where you sort of just act hopeless, right? Because the thing is, a lot of opportunities arise when there's crises like this. Like, it's not that we want this crisis to happen, it's that so the reason why businesses exist, right, is because they offer a service or a product that solves a problem, right? And what happens when there's a crisis? During a crisis, there's a lot more problems that arise, which means by proxy, that means that there's going to be a lot of solutions that are needed, which means a lot more opportunities for businesses who take advantage of the situation, right? And that's the reason why you see businesses like Microsoft, Facebook, Disney, I think Amazon, and just to name a few, they pretty much started during a downturn, right? And they're one of the most largest companies now, because if you can start a business or something or venture during a downturn, and if your business can survive, that means, like, your business is more likely to survive in good times if it can survive in a downturn, right? So it's basically baptismal by fire. So, and you also learn how to be efficient, and because the thing is, a lot of businesses that are going to go under are, you know, the inefficient businesses that are high up in leverage, or the businesses that don't change their business and pivot according to the current environment. For example, like nowadays, the current environment, we have like this pandemic where businesses can't open up because of social distancing, and they have to keep their distance and all that. But if they have some sort of method to sell their products or their services online, then they might be able to survive and weather the storm, right? For example, like some businesses like restaurants, they're turning into shadow restaurants where they're, you know, still cooking, but they have, you know, Uber Eats to, like, people to pick up the food that they cook to their customers, so that they're still able to survive. They might have less business, but they're still able to survive and weather the storm. If people have like a physical store, one way could be that, you know, they start creating online, like an online website to sell their products, and basically they can just like ship their products to their customers, and that can mitigate the issue of, you know, no customers coming to their shop. But they might have less business, but, you know, and I think after this crisis, you know, more and more people are going to want to do online business and anything that's online. Yeah. Anyways, I'll see you in the office. It's like 10-minute walk before I head into the office, and yeah, okay, see you soon. So this is basically our office space where we're working, and I'm going to start doing work.